You're going to love this. Trust me. What you're seeing now is the Red Duke of Mousillon. This is his normal state. He's joined by the vampiric knights of Aquitaine and the Dead City, clad head to toe in the corrupted heraldry of their once honorable lives. They're matching up against the Dark Elves in this one. Prepare for trouble and make it double. There are 2 Hydras on the field, and they're out for blood. But this is to go even further beyond. This is what I call a Super Vargheist 3. They've ascended. Pushed to the breaking point by the odious Druki, they've become something more than a mindless vampire. But will this transformation be enough to defeat their enemies, save their friends, and usher in a new age of undeath? Find out right now on Total War Warhammer 2. So we haven't played with the Red Duke in a really long time. He's been left in the shadow of the Bloodlines Lords, but he's still really good. It's hard for Vampire Lords to be bad, honestly, but when you've got Elsafe, the Sword of Dusk, you can outduel a huge chunk of the cast, and that's what he's good for. Put him on a zombie dragon or on a barded warhorse, and he can go in and beat up on a lot of legendary lords in this game. Because it's a Mousillon replay, might as well have him leading the army, even though he's technically known as the Scourge of Aquitaine. Next to him are the same Blood Knights you know and love, but they've got a cosmetic upgrade for this replay, using a Bretonnian skin for them by Whiskey Jack, which gives them helmets and some majestic heraldry, so they are looking quite pimpin'. They're probably the best cavalry unit in Mortal Empires outside of Arwar's Companions of Kunel, so not gonna be leaving home without them. And on each flank are my Super Saiyan Vargheists, channeling their inner Kakarot, even rocking the no eyebrow look. They have very low melee defense and very low armor. They're very squishy, but they are unique in that they're literally flying monstrous infantry with 92 speed, which means they can do stuff a lot of other units cannot, as long as they're microed well. I don't show them often on this channel, so figured it might be a good time to do so as the sultry tones of Bruce Falconer waft into our ear canals. For the Dark Elves, lots of chaff, infantry, and dart shards with a Double Hydra core at its center, a dismounted master, and a supreme sorceress of the lore of beasts. Flock of Doom, Amber Spear, and Transformation of Kadon, riding a Cold One. She's got a lot to offer in this battle. Might be one of the worst Lords of Magic in campaign, but in multiplayer, it can be quite good. Well, the Manticore summon certainly does a lot of the heavy lifting. An Overcast Amber Spear can get like 40 kills on elite infantry, or even upwards of that, or slaughter 15 Blood Knights when fired in from the flank, so it definitely has ways to impact the outcome outside the summons. Dark Rider's doing some zoning out of the Vargheist at the start of the match, but they've got 92 speed, so they should be able to dodge those shots relatively easily, and the Dark Elf infantry is heavily outclassed by Mousillon Graveguard here. We're joined by the Sternsman and a great weapon unit, so the Chill of Centaur and War Hydra have a lot of work to do this battle with their breath attacks and in melee with the Vampire Riders. So there's a lot of mobility, a clear-cut mobile advantage for the Vampires of Mousillon. The Dark Elves only have a Dark Rider, they have the War Hydras, but they're not exactly the fastest single entity monsters in the game. So their backline might be difficult to protect, at least at the start of the match. Gotta keep it high and tight if you're the Dark Elves, and make sure those Dark Shards do a lot of work shooting into the Knights of Blood Keep. Doing so now, a lot of armor-piercing damage going their way, but the center's wide open for some full frontal action, and Wallach Harkin's boys can turn this coming infantry fight into an even more lopsided one, bowling through the shield walls and sending a good 20 or so screaming into the afterlife to Netflix and chill with Aerith Kial, the Pale Queen. That's a nice thing about having the Air Force in this situation, because it forces some pretty awkward situations for the other player. On each flank, you've got the Vargheists and the Fell Bat screeching overhead, moving into the rear, pulling attention away from the center, which opens up space for the Blood Knights to safely frontal charge. Or they can ignore the flying threats and focus their firepower in the center on the Blood Knights, but now all the flyers are safely in the rear, causing a bunch of havoc. And unlike Fell Bats, you have to pay attention when Vargheists are threatening from above. They have almost 50 melee attack and 120 weapon strength. They hit really damn hard. So Blood Knights are free at the moment to do some cycle charging through the backs of their own stuff, which is still a dumb mechanic and shouldn't be a thing. Would love to see that get changed in Warhammer 3, because you shouldn't be able to do it. Well, you should, but it shouldn't be as effective as it is. And now there's a clear avenue of attack for the Vargheists and Fellbats to rear charge into the Dread Spears. Dark Riders and Dark Shards providing some nice overwatch fire into the front lines of the Graveguard. But here comes the big attack from behind, and these Dread Spears will melt away under that impact. 120 weapon strength, large charge bonus, frenzy, 48 MA. It's a glorious combination, and they're channeling their inner Son Goku and tearing that ass up in CQB. These dudes are ripped. They're scary in melee. As long as they're not getting shot or getting beat up by anti-large units, they're going to be having a wonderful time in the rear. And as we saw from that video the other day, they have wonderful rears themselves. So Vargheists are in their element right now, and I feel like there's a lot of synergy between Blood Knights and Vargheists because they really open up opportunities for the other unit. And if your opponent focuses on one of them, then the other one has a chance to come in and make a large impact themselves. So they're synergizing well at the moment. Nice breath attack coming in from the Chill of Sontar. Haven't seen a ton of breath attacks yet, and it's really important as a Dark Elf player to utilize those to their fullest potential. It's by far the best way to turn the infantry grind in your favor, pin down the Grave Guard, pin down the elite vampire infantry with your own cheap fodder, then come in from the side with the War Hydras and let her rip with a bunch of breath attacks. Vargheist and Fellbats on top of the Dark Shards now. Master holding down the center with the War Hydra and transformation of Kadon Manticore, but the Blood Knights and the Red Duke have him completely surrounded. This might be a situation where being on foot is actually a better choice. The fact that he's not mounted means he'll actually survive and just get knocked down a bit. But here comes Arnzapol's Black Horror. That was a gorgeous cast from the Supreme Sorceress, and tentacles, tarantula legs reaching out from the black smoke, and it's looking like Stephen King's The Mist. Everything inside evaporates, torn asunder, clearing out a whole horde of zombies in Graveguard. Very nice cast. Slow-moving wind spell, but when it lands, it can deal some serious DPS. And the majestic Blood Knights of Mousillon still fighting in the center of everything else. Safe was popped on the Master and trying to get the Red Duke to outduel him, but he's still tanking it out. And the Chill of Sontar dealing with Graveguard on the other side of the battlefield. Flock of Doom going down. Invocation of Nahak healing up the Blood Knights, and they're looking a little bit pained at the moment. Graveguard got forgotten about over on the other side, chasing after some Dark Elf infantry. Need to get them under control pretty soon here. And meanwhile, the Hydra is feasting on zombie flesh. The Undead cannot deal with these Hydras until the Blood Knights are ready to go back into the fight. Blood Knights are fantastic against Hydras because Hydras do not have a lot of armor, and they have a huge bootylicious hitbox, which means a lot of Blood Knights can hit those monsters simultaneously. So, if the War Hydras are able to get good breath attacks into the Blood Knights when they're engaged somewhere else, that's where you might see a ton of Blood Knights start dying. And what you want to do if you see Blood Knights on the field is out-damage their Invocation of the Hex. You know they're going to get heals, you know they're going to get some models back, but if you land a couple good breath attacks, it might be too hard for them to get those Blood Knights back into the fight. Chill of Sontar is just completely demolishing these Graveguard, but at this point in the battle, I think it's more important for them to focus on the Elite Knights of Bloodkeep. There's one down to about 1/4 health, the other's down to about half HP. You can see that all these units are trying to get together around the Red Duke for an Overcast Invocation of Nahek, which is by far the best way to get value out of your healing, and it's one of the reasons why the vampire counts are even still competitive at this point. Their healing is just incredibly good, and think about the value just got out of that. I mean, Graveguard, 2 Blood Knights, and the Red Duke all getting healed. Fantastic. Now, there's a transformation of Kadon Manticore that's chasing after, and the bait there should be readily apparent, right? He's going in, he wants the Blood Knights to get blobbed up around the Manticore so he can fire in with a breath attack from the War Hydra, fire in with the Dark Shards, and wreck those elite Blood Knights. So they don't want to take that bait. They don't want to surround it because they know it exposes them to the overwhelming ranged firepower that can come their way. So they're just moving out of range of the Dark Shards first before turning around to go and kill off that single entity. Graveguard don't have shields on that side. That's a great weapon unit, so they could get torn up pretty bad by a couple Dark Shard volleys. And the Vargheists, meanwhile, are doing exactly what they're supposed to do, which is hunt down all the range threats and make sure they cannot return to the battlefield. The Dark Shards are in a nightmare situation here. Son Goku's Vargheists are on the prowl, and they're gonna beat them up bad. I don't think these Dark Shards will come back to the fight. I know I wouldn't want to. Getting Dragon Fisted into oblivion, probably not in my top 5 lists of ways to go, you know? So the Vargheists are doing fantastic at the moment, both around 50 kills or so. Stern's been in good shape. These Graveguard are donezo. The Chill of Sontar managed to munch them all up in CQB. Though haven't seen any flush breath attacks from the ice monster yet, and this is why relying solely on skirmish mode can be a problem. a lot of players, even a lot of really good players in Warhammer 2, overly rely on skirmish mode, and it can get you into trouble as another overcast Invocation of the Heck hits the Blood Knights and will get most of them back up to pretty much full HP. But yeah, the skirmish mode can be a problem because a fell bat chases you to the edge of the map, you're microing elsewhere, and soon enough, they're literally run to the edge with nowhere to go, and they get munched apart by a bunch of little angry bats. So those Dark Riders are off the field now too. Vargheists have a free charge into the Dread Spears, backed up by the Sternsmen. Nice Flock of Doom on everything though. And one of those units of Vargheists looks like they're on their last legs. It won't take a whole lot more before that unit is done, and I'm not sure there will be enough Invocation of the Hex to heal them. I mean, they're pretty low at this point, about 1/8 of their HP or so left. Chilasantar and the War Hydra coming over. Sternsman doesn't want to stick in that fight if he can avoid it. Dark Shards again on skirmish mode. Kind of got them pushed away from the remnants of their force. And now the Blood Knights can come in alongside the Vargheists and finish them off for good as well. That's a big blow. They had a lot of ammunition remaining. So the Dark Elves are not out of this one yet, but losing the Dark Shards there is a pretty painful blow. They've got the Master at half HP, the Supreme Sorceress at full HP, and 2 War Hydras. They're about to be surrounded by a bunch of Blood Knights and the Red Duke, who is looking pretty healthy. Sternsmen were not able to run away anymore. They don't have a ton of speed. Not exactly known for their mobility or maneuverability. They got caught, and now the Hydras are feasting on them. But this would be a great time for some breath attacks, and so far, we really have not seen a lot of breath attacks out of the War Hydras. Now, one of the units is completely surrounded. And watch as this HP bar plummets. It's going to get nasty super quick for the single entity monster. It was at full health, and now it's at half, and it was literally 10 seconds for that to happen. And what I'm talking about when I say Blood Knights are amazing versus War Hydras, they kind of just have the perfect combination of stats to deal with them efficiently. With that said though, they kind of counter each other. As I said, War Hydras have one of the best breath attacks in the game. They can delete elite knights, which is always fun if they get good breath attacks in. So as Flock of Doom rains down from the Supreme Sorceress, situation where if you're on the Dark Elf side and you tie down the Blood Knights and get on the flank of them, one breath attack could easily kill 15, 20, 25 models, which means those Invocation hacks will be much less effective as you move more and more towards the late stages of the game. Master is somehow still alive, but looking like he's about to rout here. Red Duke doing his best to outduel him with Elsafe. That minus 48% speed means he ain't going anywhere, playa. Chilasantar getting stuck into everything committed. Vampire counts, rather, the Red Duke of Mousillon and the Scourge of Aquitaine. And they're gonna win this battle. But the War Hydra might have one last thing to say about it before everything is all said and done. Chilasantar breaks off from the blob. Full surround is working. Vargheist might crumble out here too. Spent all its ki, used up all that energy in the fight, and now it needs a nap. Maybe Nahak will bring it back after this battle. Boom, hits the ground, double fast forward. War Hydra comes in with one last gorgeous breath attack, and that's what the Dark Elves needed a little bit sooner. Look at what that thing can do, man. That's a good 60 kills right there on Graveguard and zombies. Even killed maybe a Vargheist or two as well. Fantastic, but way too late in that situation. There's a lot to talk about in terms of strats and army composition in this battle. So, number one, you gotta use those breath attacks early and often with War Hydras. You don't need a perfect setup, you don't need to wait for the perfect moment, but you do need to land some fire in and amongst the Graveguard while they're pinned down by Bleak Swords and Dread Spears. That's the whole point. If you're going for a double Hydra build, you need to make sure that while the chaff is holding the line, which won't be long against the undead and all their fear and all their terror, you need to land at least some shots on the Graveguard to clear out the infantry, because if they're able to just push in and get on top of the Dark Shards for free, you already know you're in big trouble. And War Hydra breath attacks can bleed models off of Blood Knights, which is a great use for it. I mean, fantastic value there if you're shooting fire into Blood Knights. Even if you're only killing 5-6 models, that's the equivalent of a Spirit Leech. That is absolutely worth doing. They've each got 3 breath attacks. Make sure you use them. I think we only saw 2 or 3 breath attacks that entire game, and one of them came in garbage time when it didn't matter. Hydra Breath is one of the best in the game. Make sure you use it. I think the Dismounted Master was maybe a bit of a waste. I like Cold One Knights here. Bit of extra mobility and mass to protect the back line would have done wonders to ward off the Vargheists, and they even trade upwards into Blood Knights as long as they don't get charged. So I think a little bit more mobility, not just relying on the Dark Riders to clean up your back line, would have been pretty useful. He just wasn't well suited for dealing with Vargheists or Fellbats in that situation at all. Double War Hydra can absolutely work, but you need a backline sweeper with speed, and that's where Cold One Knights come in. They can be quite efficient in that role. Overall, I like the ideas, but there definitely could have been some money saved there by cutting out the Dismounted Master and going for something else. Meanwhile, Blood Knights carried the game pretty hard, both earned double chevrons, and the Vargheists opened up the opportunity for the Blood Knights to do as well as they did, and the Vargheists themselves each got 70 kills, so had a ton of fun using them. Might be seeing more of them soon. Hope you guys enjoyed.